Stadia will close in January. Google issuing refunds for all hardware and software purchases. My lord, Google is the murderer of their own babies. Okay, let's just say that.
Oh,
Mm-mm-mm.
and like you texted me this when I was at work, and I'm like, at first I was like, kind of like, oh, all right, and at the same time, I'm like, I saw this coming. Like we're not surprised by this, but this was like the breaking news. Like, what was it? Maybe an hour and a half before I got like you texted me this at like what 4:30, somewhere
Something
around
like
there.
that. Something like
Yeah.
that.
So it was earlier this afternoon. So it's breaking news. More specifically, Stadia will close down its platform and end its online servers on January 18th of 2023. After that, you won't be able to access the Stadia service in any way. As for your games and hardware, Google is offering refunds, quote, for all Stadia hardware purchases like controllers, the Founders Edition, Premier Edition, and Play and Watch with Google TV packages through the Stadia store. According to an FAQ post by Google today, it seems like the only aspect of Stadia that won't be refunded are Stadia Pro subscriptions. However, you will, quote, be able to continue playing your games in Pro without further charges until the final wind down date. If you're hoping to get a refund for your hardware, Google says, quote, most hardware purchases made directly from Google will not require you to return your hardware. The company intends to have the majority of refunds processed by Stadia's January 18th shutdown date. The Stadia store and all its functions have been turned off, so you'll not be able to make any more Stadia related purchases or in game transactions.
Okay. I want to ask you this question in chat. I
Okay.
want to hear your thoughts. If you're watching this on the replay, let us know as well. Does this concern you with digital games that anytime a service can go away, and we called it from the
Mm,
beginning on Google Play or Google
yeah.
Stadia, we called that very early on because it was just not a good service. Like it
Yeah.
sounded good and everything. Luna is kind of the same way. XCloud is the only thing that actually works from my playing of it, because I tried Stadia before.
Yeah.
Is digital gaming, does this make you concerned? Like, I bought the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game that
Yeah.
Platinum did on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
It is no longer on the PlayStation Store. I
Mm.
don't even know if I can go and download it off of the PlayStation, like, because I own it. Does going completely exclusive on digital, does this concern you that, hey, you might have put all this money into this, but it's going to go away? Like, does that concern you, Derek?
So, yes and no. It's a twofold thing because one, in this instance with Stadia, it's I consider this an outlier because it's a different piece of tech that, yeah, it sounded great. But once it came out, like you were a tester, you had
Mhm.
it when it came out, and you were a early adopter, and
Yep.
it was utter garbage, and they never fixed it. Um, I don't think it's an indictment on digital games in terms of sales because look, yes, like with that one, like if you still own it, I think like the any online functionality will not work, but you can still download it because you own the rights to it. Like now, whether you have to go offline to do it or not, that's another entirety in itself.
Hmm.
But I look at it this way: like I'm not one of those old games old because as we found out with Plague Tale Innocence, like a couple year old game is still fun to play. Um, Now I'm a single player guy, so I'm a different breed of animal too, to where it's like, all right, even if it's no longer for sale, I can still download it because there's no online service with single player games. You can still download it
Hmm.
as long as you have internet connection and you can it can ping to the thing that you own the rights to it. Yeah, I do know the digital front is a scary place because yes, like you said, they can take it whenever they want to. At the
Hmm.
same time, it's going to happen over time anyway. Like Titanfall 1, if they're not already, those servers are going to shut down anyway because it's an online centric game. They can't support it if especially if the player base is dwindling. So like old games old. Like they finally when the Halo 2 server shut down for the OG Halo 2, there was that one guy who kept his Xbox running for weeks on months just to be the last player on Halo 2. It's going to happen and it's but now with the age of making money for the industry and like because of how expensive things are getting to make, you're going to have remakes, remastered collections. Like that has become more prevalent year over year. So even if a game that's old, like heck, we just got a Last of Us 1 remake, and that's not,
Mhm.
yes, it's a 10-year-old game from the original PS3 release, but if you played it recently on PS4, that's only like a 7-year-old game. So it's not that big. So with them wanting to make money as companies, they're going to remake it in within a 10-year radius anyway. So even if you haven't played it and then it's shut down or you're no longer able to purchase, like, man, that sucks. But if you keep up with the industry enough and the trends, you'll realize, hey, they're going to redo it anyway down the line. Like, how many old collections and games have they brought back? Like, look at Teenage, like you said, the Platinum games. Like, it wasn't a great game for TMNT, but look at all the resurgence for TMNT that they've done the last couple months or this year alone. So they can still do with IPs that way. I think this is more an indictment on streaming, like game streaming. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
we see it with Xbox, like with Game Pass, like, and streaming to your cloud devices, streaming to
PlayStation
your
Now.
systems, your tablet, your PlayStation Now. I think this is more of an indictment on streaming, that it's like, hey, if you can't make it sustainable and you can't have a network that supports what you want to do with it, you're going to be DOA and your money's going to go down the
Yeah.
toilet. So I think it's more of an indictment on streaming games than it is buying digital.
Yeah. I want to hit chat and then I'll give my thoughts on that as well.
Yeah.
Um, Dan says that's why I still mostly buy physical copies. Cody says not concerning for digital gaming, does concern me when is the next what's next on Google's hit list, because
That
guys,
one.
if you don't know, Google loves killing its own children. Um, Dan also said that's why I prefer digital be tied to subscriptions. And this is my thought. The reason I asked that is not necessarily that games go offline because they're
Yeah.
tied to an online service. It's like let's just say you bought God of War Ragnarok, Derek, and
Yeah.
4 months down the road, PlayStation implodes, and because PlayStation imploded, you can no longer access God of War Ragnarok because
Yeah.
your PlayStation has to check online to see that you have the rights to that game. I know you're going to
Mhm.
get a physical copy, but it has to check that you have the rights to that game. But guess what? PlayStation Network no longer exists and you don't have any of those games.
Yeah.
That changes a lot of things because a lot of us, me and you, completely digital. Like I have a few
Yeah.
games because you got it with the PlayStation 5 for me, but
Yeah.
that's it. Like I
Yeah.
don't do physical games anymore. And that's concerning. And it's also concerning for older games that are not getting digitized for, archive sake and everything. It's
Yeah.
like, why do we have to worry about the things that we pay for going away?
Yeah.
And that's my biggest concern is, are we going to get to the point where we're beholden to whoever owns you know the rights when
Yeah.
we are supposed to be the ones that bought it? It's ours, but it's like it's essentially the ones that actually are running the services and
Yeah.
not us.
Yeah. And I mean, I could go down a whole rabbit hole, like a bigger picture thing of bigger than gaming, but I'm not going to,
Yeah.
about, owning things or whatnot. But
Hmm.
how about this? I'm a different animal because it's like, all right, look, if I buy it and I play it, cool. I can't tell you how many games I bought that I hadn't even thought about downloading or touching, or I'll go through my gaming library. I'm like, why did I buy this? Like, or I'm like, did I buy this or was this a PS Plus download? I can't remember. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's so many games I have in my backlog that I'm just like, and it's there's a lot of buyer's remorse, and you do bring up a good point. Um, because you never know. Like, we can easily say, oh, Sony would never bad, like, nothing bad would happen to that, but then we don't know. Like, they could have a cyber
Yeah.
attack. You remember? I'm still old enough to remember the PS3 PSN hack of 2011.
Yep. Yep.
So
Or it was like 2015, something around that, where Lizard hacked Xbox and PlayStation during Christmas when everybody
yeah.
Christmas Day and shut down Xbox Live and the PSN. Like everything was down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like that was a big thing, but like to Murdoch's point, if something happened to Steam, he would be out a lot of money. And
Yeah.
I'm just posing this question for all of us that do digital games. If we're PC players, everything's digital these days. Like we
Yeah.
don't get the big cases with the disc and all that kind of stuff. And even then, you
Oh,
had to have keys and all that kind of stuff.
and fun fact, by the way, the Jotnar edition for Ragnarok does it comes with a steelbook, yes, but it comes with a digital code. Like Horizon
Uh,
did that as well. It came with a digital code because it gives you both versions, the PS4 and the PS5, depending.
mm,
So that way you could buy it, um, no matter if you couldn't get a PS5 or not, and still have the swag with the game.
mm, mm.
So I'm buying even though it comes with a great steelbook, it's the digital version of the game.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Guys, let us know your thoughts.